3-0 in the conference finals. Did you expect to see it play out the way it has to this point?
Yeah, I didn't really expect to see it play out before the series started. However, after watching both of those game ones, with seeing the Mavericks shoot terribly from three, have a pretty bad field goal percentage throughout that game, and then come back and win, I was like, oh, this may be a sweep after how bad that they shot from three. And then likewise with the Celtics, I was like, the Celtics almost blew a game. Then Jaylen Brown hits the three to send it into overtime, and they end up winning that game. Jason Tatum ices it in overtime. And then likewise with that series, is like the Celtics may sweep them or at least beat them in five again in this series. So before they started, I was like, 6 games for the Celtics and Pacers, maybe 7 for the Timberwolves. But after that first game when Dallas was in Minnesota, I was like, oh, this actually might be a sweep.
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, the tandem with Luka and Kyrie has been absolutely electric. You saw Luka's big game-winning shot in Game 2, one of the nastiest game winners in recent memory. And for me, the downside is that the Timberwolves, with how good they played against the Suns and Nuggets, I feel like in this series, Anthony Edwards has not been that same player. I don't know if he's tired or whatever it might be, but they seem to take a step back. Rudy Gobert is back to Rudy Gobert himself. And I've been kind of disappointed from what I've seen from the Timberwolves. Now, as for the Pacers, Halliburton going down in Game 3 obviously gave the advantage to the Celtics. And Celtics, we were thinking 6 games because of how they've played the last 2 series. So not really super surprised with the Pacers series. We'll see if the Celtics close it out tonight as we're recording this on Monday. But I think my biggest surprise so far of the playoffs has been the Timberwolves and how they've been in this conference finals, because I definitely think they've lost a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah, for me with the Timberwolves, the reason why I picked the Dallas Mavericks in that series, I'm like, Kyrie Irving is going to be the X factor, and I think that him and Luka could both average 30. My problem was I don't know what I'm going to get from Karl Anthony Towns, and the number 2 for Minnesota has not been Karl Anthony Towns. He was 0 of 8 in Game 3. This is a game where you're like, hey, no team ever has come back from being down 0-3, so this is a must-win game. Karl Anthony Towns is a no-show, and then in Game 2, they end up benching Karl Anthony Towns because Naz Reid was absolutely going off in that game, ends up having 23 points. I believe he was like 7 of 8 from downtown in that game, and the one he missed was just the heave at the end. So I was like, really, I don't know what I'm going to be getting from Karl Anthony Towns, and that has been the case here where Cat has just kind of folded. He hasn't been able to rise to the occasion, and I was surprised with how well he played in the first 2 series versus Denver and versus Phoenix. But I'm like, this is all going to come to a head in the conference championship when it all matters the most here. And then also Rudy Gobert. We've been talking about it on the show. We talk about it on the show. Like, this guy is not worth 5 first-round picks. He is not the defensive player of the year. How can you be the defensive player of the year when every single team targets you? You literally have Luka being like, yeah, I know I'm slow, but at least I'm faster than him. Yikes. And Rudy Gobert has been targeted. And then in Game 3, immediately the first play, they get Kyrie Irving ISO'd versus Rudy Gobert. And then Anthony Edwards goes from being the son of Michael Jordan. He goes from being the next Kobe Bryant. He gets from being anointed to being better than Jason Tatum, jumping in that first tier to being the Andrew Wiggins of Jimmy Butler's.
Oh, ouch. And
He is the Andrew Wiggins of Jimmy Butler. He talks as much as Jimmy Butler. He has the athleticism of Andrew Wiggins, and he's kind of like if you merge both of their skill sets together. But we've also seen that he's also disappeared like Andrew Wiggins has the tendency to do. I don't want to hear about a 22-year-old being tired in a conference finals. Like, what is this? You're Anthony Edwards. This is the Big Show versus the Dallas Mavericks. You've been talking trash nonstop throughout the playoffs here, and you've choked in every single fourth quarter. At the end of Game 2, it looked like he was taking passing notes from Jaylen Brown. Except the only difference is Jaylen Brown is out here in the conference championships hitting game-tying threes, not turning the ball over like Anthony Edwards did in Game 2. Basically just throwing the series away. Luka hits the 3. Good night. You choked.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't put it better. And also the Jalen Brown thing, dropping 40 points in game two, also couldn't forget about that either. But yeah, for me, like, I don't want to hear about the tired Anthony Edwards. I don't want to hear about all the things that they didn't mention in these last two rounds. He's young, he's athletic, he's healthy. He should be able to be what he was these last two rounds. And it's not like the Mavericks are an impossible team to break through. He's been shooting what 36% from the field in this series and hasn't been showing up in the fourth quarter. It's like I don't want to hear this. If he's going to be this guy who's a top 10 player who's playing both sides of the ball and is supposed to be up there with the echelons of the face of the league, then where is all the excuses that they have with him this time around? Everyone wants to shit on Jason Tatum. Everyone wants to shit on Kyrie and Luka Doncic, but all three of these guys have showed up in this round, and the reason why they're going to match up in the finals at this point.